Let's move on to the third title that we're going to be talking about, and that is the big one. Ultimate's comic Spider-Man. We have 3 issues of that have come out so far. As Patrick kind of pointed out before this, they're all kind of the same. They're very similar.
The covers.
Yeah. Kind of boring, but I think they're just trying to kind of go for, you know, classic looks for each of the covers.
I like that the covers look nice, but you know, I don't. They always have like these pinup covers.
Yeah, it's like I mean, you can't tell what's going on in it based on these covers at all.
Yeah,
it's just Spider-Man posing.
That's a comic book, modern comics thing.
But I feel like Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man has been like a pretty bad one like throughout the series. Like it's pretty much
Ultimate Spider-Man is particularly notorious
for
having
of
covers
Spider-Man
that are not indicative of what goes on inside the comic book. But we digress.
So this one is by Brian Michael Bendis and Sara Pichelli. And I feel like of all the titles, this is the strongest art. I feel like you feel the same way.
Oh, definitely. I love Sara Pichelli.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, right, myself in.
Basically, this takes place before the death of Spider-Man, though. And kind of backtracks, and we got to see Miles Morales in Ultimate Fallout for the first time.
Yes.
After Peter Parker died.
In like one panel, the identity of the new Spider-Man was revealed, and a lot of attention has obviously been paid to the identity of this new character.
Yep. So, and he is half black, half Hispanic,
yeah.
Was it? Yeah. And basically this goes back into the past and kind of like talks about how he got pretty much the same kind of power set as Spider-Man does. Also bitten by a radioactive spider, as they kind of tried to reimagine the experiment that created Peter Parker as Spider-Man in the first place. And basically it's kind of like an accident, just like what happened to Peter Parker a little bit. His uncle is actually a thief, and he broke into Osborn's laboratory, and one of the spiders, genetic spiders, kind of hitchhiked a ride with him, and Miles Morales gets bitten while he's visiting his uncle. There's a lot of tension between Miles Morales' family and the uncle. He's not really supposed to be seeing his uncle because they know that he's a thief and he's bad news, and they don't want Miles exposed to that. At the same time this is happening, Miles wins a lottery. He comes from like kind of a bad neighborhood, and he gets into this like prestigious school where he has like kind of like a chance at a good future, basically. So this happens at the same time he's bitten by the radioactive spider. He gets basically the same kind of powers that Peter Parker has, crawling on walls, etc. It's kind of a spider sense, but he does get a few extra little nuggets in there. One, he has kind of like a widow's bite, like I kind of think of Black Widow bite a little bit, where he kind of shocks people, it seems like, or shocks things, whatever. Causes almost like a little bit of like a combustive like component or something. Because he makes some like Legos fly at one point. He like makes somebody like, I don't know, kind of like concussive like forces against somebody at one point. But his other thing is he can also turn invisible. And it seems like he doesn't really have the hang of these powers yet, but yeah, he has those, which is going to be kind of neat, I feel like, because they're bringing more of those like spider powers into it. Because spiders obviously can blend in, you know, they're meant to not be seen by their prey or caught in a web, and obviously they have the venom. So it's kind of cool to see these other spider powers manifested in him, I guess. We'll see how it plays out and how they make use of that in the Ultimate Universe. There were a couple like big speeches that kind of took place between Miles Morales and like his like father, and this I kind of felt like it was going to devolve into with great power comes great responsibility, but it didn't quite go there, thankfully. But I feel like, you know, obviously people kind of knew that was Peter Parker's type of thing, so I feel like that's going to come into play just based on Peter Parker. I feel like Miles Morales had great respect for him and is going to kind of model himself after that at some point. But right now, Miles Morales is kind of a reluctant hero.
Very much
so. He does save a child from a burning building at one point, and after that, he kind of just focuses on his studies. But obviously, things are going to change because he obviously becomes Spider-Man at some point. So yeah, I did like it. There's a lot of parallels between his stories and Peter Parker's, but it's different enough where I feel like it really works. So yeah.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I've basically been following Ultimate Spider-Man since the beginning. And Brian Michael Bendis has been the writer the entire time, and he is the writer on this new version of Ultimate Spider-Man. So I've always really liked the book, and I was surprised they actually killed off Peter Parker during the death of Spider-Man. I thought there was going to be some last-minute twist, and perhaps there still eventually will be. But for now, indeed, Peter Parker is not around, and the much-publicized Miles Morales is set up to be the new Spider-Man. He's not in costume yet in any of these issues, so it's a very slowly told origin story, as it was for Peter Parker in the first issues of Ultimate Spider-Man way back, God, I think over a decade ago now those came out, if you can believe that. So there are some parallels in the way that the story is being told. We don't see him in costume yet. You know, he just begins to discover his superpowers at the end of the first issue. So, yeah, I really like Miles Morales, and I like these issues a lot. I thought it was really well done. Let's see, what do I want to say first? I like that, you're right, there are a lot of parallels to the Peter Parker Spider-Man, but there's enough new things, too, that it keeps it interesting. Like, they've taken a lot of classic Spider-Man elements and kind of remixed them in a fresh way. Like, for example, of course, in Spider-Man's origin, everybody knows that his Uncle Ben is a really important figure because his Uncle Ben was killed by a thief, and that's what inspires Peter Parker to become Spider-Man. In this version, Miles Morales' uncle is also an important figure, but his uncle is a thief, and Miles Morales' parents are still around as kind of more appropriate authority figures, and his uncle's escapades are what indirectly lead to Miles getting his superpowers. So that was an interesting twist. I like how the structure of the story kind of parallels like I said, the earlier issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, and the end of the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man ends with Peter Parker hanging from his ceiling, having just discovered the first of his superpowers. Ultimate Spider-Man, the new Ultimate Spider-Man #1, ends in a similar way with him turning invisible and discovering that power, which is a bit of a surprise. I love the twist of that there are new superpowers. I think that's really cool. Like, he has a lot of the same powers as the Spider-Man that we've been familiar with, but I like that they added invisibility and this kind of force or electricity kind of sting he's got. So I thought that was really cool. I like that the character is so young. He's in middle school. He's really a child, even younger than Peter Parker was when he got the powers, which has always been one of the fun things about Ultimate Spider-Man, is that it's a teenage hero. So it all worked really well, and it all seems like it's going to be the basis for a really cool run of comics. I really enjoyed it. And as much as I love the story, the thing I love most of all about Ultimate Spider-Man was Sara Pichelli's artwork. He is an Italian artist who does amazing work here. And she's not even really getting into the superhero-y stuff yet, right? Like, he's not in costume yet, and we don't have any super villains yet. But the artwork here is so beautiful and so expressive in the way that she draws these characters, especially Miles Morales, like the facial expressions and body language. I really enjoyed that. So I really enjoyed being introduced to her as an artist. And, you know, the Ultimate line in general and Ultimate Spider-Man in particular have kind of distinguished themselves by keeping the line really focused, both in the number of titles and also the number of creative teams who work on them. Ultimate Spider-Man's only had a few artists that have done it and a single writer. And, you know, Sara Pichelli is obviously worthy of that great tradition. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more of her artwork and her drawing some of the more superhero-y stuff going forward. I think she's just a super talented artist who's going to have a great career. So she, for me, is kind of the star of this whole Ultimate relaunch. And I do like the new costume, even though we haven't seen it in the comic books yet. It's a cool costume. And yeah, it was a great book.
Yeah, and I do like the supporting cast. Obviously, they had to kind of like come up with something because there's not a Gwen Stacy, there's not
right.
a
They had a great supporting cast before, and you know, Peter Parker is one of the great comics characters. So I mean, I'm not going to say that Miles Morales is the new Peter Parker or as good as the original like Spider-Man, but he's a great character in his own right. And you know, when his identity was revealed in Ultimate Fallout, when the new Spider-Man took off his mask and we saw that it was half black, half Latino kid, the first thing I thought of was, and I'm going to paraphrase Spider-Man's co-creator Stan Lee here, who at various points has said that one of the ideas he thinks that makes Spider-Man so appealing to so many people is the fact that he's completely covered from head to toe. So that any kid, regardless of their skin color, nationality, can imagine themselves as Spider-Man. So underneath the mask, Spider-Man could be black, he could be white, he could be Jewish. So I feel like Marvel's introduction of this character, while yes, I'm sure it was somewhat of a calculated publicity move, ultimately is very much in the very truest spirit of the original Marvel comics and the original conception of Spider-Man. So I'm in full support of Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man.
Yeah, me too.
Great book.
Yeah, it's a great book so far. Yeah, does he spin webs? Did Peter Parker spin webs?
No. In the Ultimate Universe, he had mechanical web shooters, which were developed in part by his father. Okay. So he didn't have organic webs, and we don't know what Miles Morales' webbing situation is going to be. We'll have to stay tuned. Maybe in issue 4.
But he can still stick to walls and stuff like the spider.
Sticks to walls, turns invisible. It's all good, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll be really interesting to see him kind of grapple with some of Peter Parker's old foes.
Yep. And I wonder if it's going to be a lot of older or newer. I hope both.
We'll see. But I also feel like it'll be cool to see him interact with like people like, you know, the Spider-Girl clone of Peter Parker and some of those other characters who were introduced in the Ultimate Spider-Man in the past.
Well, I'm kind of wondering about Mary Jane.
Yeah.
She had, you know, will she be a part of this? I kind of hope so. J. Jonah Jameson. So they're, you know, Ultimate Spider-Man had been a great book. I mean, if they had kept going with Peter Parker, I would have been thrilled. But I feel like this is a really radical kind of new approach that's injected new life into the series in a great way. So I'm looking forward to reading more. So I liked it. So this was probably your favorite of the bunch? Or you liked Ultimate X-Men?
I actually loved Ultimate X-Men more.
Well,
art was obviously amazing in Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I think everybody else paled in comparison.
Sara Pichelli.
X-Men I think was better than the other ones for art, but yeah, Sara Pichelli is pretty amazing.